Head over to Kees Bastmeijer from the University of Tilburg, and he will present a talk on the Antarctic tourism research in the Netherlands. Kees, the floor is yours, please.
Yep. Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be in this meeting, and I very much enjoyed the previous presentations, and I hope to add a number of things from a governance legal perspective. I present this particularly just as background information, and I hope it is useful for the people participating in this meeting. Daniela already explained that tourism is not unregulated. I think that's a good and important starting point to emphasize. Tourism is covered by the Madrid Protocol of 1991 that entered into force in 1998. For instance, environmental impact assessment obligations apply to tourism, as well as many specific prohibition of the annexes. Also, two measures and resolutions, Daniela has explained that very well. And IAATO is another system of regulation, self-regulation, bylaws, guidelines, and observer system, data and statistics, and also a very active role in that ATCM. And in relation to that issue on the relationship between the Antarctic Treaty system and IAATO, I think that is an interesting topic as such. Quite some bylaws by IAATO have been codified in resolutions, for instance, also some measures that did not enter into force yet, as Daniela already explained. So a sort of codification of self-regulation in a state legal system. It is therefore also a sort of backup of the self-regulatory system to ensure that free riders that do not want to become a member of IAATO have not a privileged position. But of course, the ATS, the Antarctic Treaty System, also has an own responsibility, very often emphasized in the Antarctic Treaty Consultative Meetings as well, because we all know that self-regulation may have limitations. And therefore, it is important to keep that relationship and each other's responsibilities into account. Just to add to some concerns already expressed by Daniela and Pablo, there is a general, not a general, but several consultative parties at least, and also in the academic literature, serious concerns have been provided in relation to the question in Antarctic tourism. So many of these consultative parties and researchers are of the opinion that the existing system does not address all these concerns. And then we talk about quite some interesting issues that Pablo already explained, the growth and diversification of Antarctic tourism, but also emissions, cumulative impacts, for instance, disturbance of wildlife, increased energy cost for species, trampling, changes of soil, etc., all described in the literature that Pablo discussed. Lack of monitoring as well, no common monitoring in the areas that most visited. And there is no proactive approach regarding new activities, for instance, permanent infrastructures and other new particularly concerning activities, or at least concerning for some of the consultative parties. Limitations in the use of existing Antarctic Treaty System instruments may be considered as a concern as well. And of course, supervision and enforcement is challenging. Particularly important is research because of the system of the CEP and the ATCM. Many of the decisions that are made, or let me put it differently, there is a strong emphasis on science-based decision-making, both in the Committee of Environmental Protection, but also in the Antarctic Treaty System. And in the course of the decades, I might say that weakens the position of the precautionary approach. There are several countries that emphasize that science should be available before decision-making takes place, and that decision-making is based on consensus. So important background to emphasize, and also a reason to emphasize the importance of Antarctic tourism research. quite so many inspiring initiatives. I put this forward particularly also for those people less involved in the Antarctic networks. The AC21 network, already mentioned by Pablo, SCAR, the Standing Committee for Humanities and Social Sciences, the EPTRN network that Pat Meyer just noted in the chat, COMNAP-related research, IUCN commissions, Arctic Research Network, and of course this NWO call can also be considered as a stimulus for international cooperative research. And for new researchers, I would say that it is very important to be involved because of new knowledge, but also innovative ideas and inspiration from other areas. Just to introduce very briefly one current research project in the Netherlands, and that will be my last part of the presentation. Recently, a ProACT project has been funded. It is a project of 3 universities, Wageningen, Utrecht and Tilburg in the Netherlands. And they relate research to 4 themes: tourism growth, and particularly question whether there may be established a cap and trade system, and based maybe or funded maybe by, to fund monitoring. That is a PhD position in Wageningen. A second is tourism diversification, also in Wageningen. A third is domestic implementation legislation, particularly focused on the jurisdictional reach of domestic laws. Will we have a sufficient reach of all activities in the Antarctic, given the limitations in the system? And a fourth issue, the role of non-use and non-user states in Antarctica. This is the team we are working with. The names are mentioned, and I think you will get this presentation, so I won't all introduce them. There is no time for that. But we are looking forward to further cooperation. And I think that whoever gets money for whatever program, I think it is a fantastic stimulus to enrich the research community that is involved in Antarctic tourism research. So if in the future there are important programs funded, ProACT and its participants are looking forward to further cooperation. So I hope this was a bit of interesting and additional to the wonderful presentations by the other speakers. Thank you very much.
Thank you.